just about anything, how that can help us with prioritization, how it can help us with metrics, and how it can help us with reporting, how we can leverage this information to bring us forward, to get doing vulnerability management better. I'll have a wrap up in here as well, and we'll leave a lot of time at the end for questions. So that's what the plan is for today. So without further ado, let's just get into this. And I'm getting rid of my clicker because apparently it's just not going to work for me today. So who am I? Laura gave a great intro, like I said. I'm doing a wide variety of stuff. I've actually moved roles inside the government fairly recently. And what I'm doing now, I'm actually leading the cybersecurity work for a large capital project inside the department where I work. We're consolidating a whole bunch of networks, and surprise, surprise, we're looking at cloud. And I'm leading all the security aspects, and of late, I've actually been doing the system engineering work and a whole bunch of other things because we're having flux in the project and we're going through and just getting done what we need to do. But it's a very large capital project is what I'm working on. I've also lived previously, I've done vulnerability management research, looking into that with automation really. In general, I've played the whack-a-mole game for people as well that you may be living and doing that. Yeah, those Friday nights or the long weekends when the bad guys just don't like us. Yeah, been there, done that, bought that t-shirt, gave that up. Moved on in my career for other things that I've now found more challenging. And I also worked for 11 years at a large telco, started doing network design, moved into security, et cetera, all kinds of fun things. Been at STI, so if you have any questions about STI, please feel free, you can reach out. I've been through the program. I'm now actually on the faculty research committee, helping students move through all their research papers, actually doing the grading of the papers, as well as the presentations themselves that students go through and do. So doing that with STI. Been with SANS for forever, been teaching for over 10 years, certified instructor, and as Laura said, co-author of the Management 516. But I don't care about that. Who cares about me? Now, one thing I put in here before I started anything, because I did not want to forget, because my mind, quite frankly, is like a sieve sometimes. What we have coming up in September, I'm going to be teaching Management 516. I'll mention that again in the last slide, but there is a summit that's going on, the SANS Cybersecurity Leadership Summit. That is a free event on September 16th. You can sign up, join online for free, see all kinds of presentations, network with a bunch of people, and get phenomenal information. So sign up for that today, head over there. Laura's probably going to dump out a copy of the link to do that, but it's a free event. Take a look and see what's there. There's lots of good speakers, be able to help us out and move forward and continue to advance the security in our organizations and, quite frankly, help our careers. So there you go. I'm also teaching that week, the 14th, 24th. It's starting on the 14th. I'm teaching Management 516 as well, but enough about that. Now, what is this funny thing called contextual information? We covered this up in the web, talked about what is contextual information and how to get it. So I actually have 2 slides here. What is contextual information to remind us? It's anything really that we can get extra information that's going to help us get a better understanding. Give a long list of things up there on the screen, be it process owners, system administrators, dependent systems, IP addresses, all of this. And we need this to do vulnerability management. If I'm doing a network-based scan, I need the IP addresses to point the scanner at and say, find the problems. If I actually have agents in my systems, I need to understand my network topologies. Where are the dependencies? Where are things like firewalls? Oh my goodness. Last thing you want is having firewall blocking your agent returning information to the centralized console. Yeah, not a good thing. Or to get the remediation work done out there. Again, those pesky little firewalls, network intrusion prevention systems, how we have our network segmented up, where we're using NAT. Yes, I know. I just gave you summarized probably half of the problems you have in the world in about 25 seconds. But regardless, it's extra information. That's what context is. And it's really anything that helps us get a better understanding of what we have inside our environment. This could be the system. This could be the asset. This could be really any entity, if you want to call it that, that's in front of it. helping us get more information about said piece of information, something I can layer on to get more details around it. That's what contextual information is. Now, in the first webcast, the one slide coverage of that, for those that maybe didn't get a chance to listen in on that one, how to find contextual information. I could not provide details on how you can find contextual information everywhere for all things. So I covered off some areas of where we can take a look and get access to. Our enterprise assets, how we can find it using PowerShell. Pointed you to a couple of scripts. You can go and take a look at that webcast for more details. One of them is an asset inventory script. You see the link there on the screen. It's on a GitHub repository of mine. Runs PowerShell, queries the system it's being run on, gives you a list of all the software that's installed on the system. Great piece of information, because software inventory, we are atrocious at getting the data or keeping it up to date. That script only does run on one system. Should be able to expand it quite easily to coast across a range to your entire organization. But you can see the PowerShell details of what it's querying out. Talked about cloud assets as well, about leveraging the APIs. We want to tap into what's exposed for us by the vendors. Ultimately, I'd like to try and do this through automated mechanisms. As an example, having our vulnerability scanners, our Qualys, our Tenable, our Nessus, with all the big vendors. Tennis, wow. Here I am. I want to go and actually volley 30 love. Regardless, leveraging those are automated tools to query and pull the information for us from the cloud service providers. Even if we can't, we can do it through the CLI aspect. And on the screen, just giving you an example how you could type this in. AWS EC2, describe instances, all the details about the EC2 instance, what the image, what's the IP address, when it's created, all the details associated with it. Wow, tons of contextual information. Same thing inside Azure, AZVM list pulls all the details. You can limit it down to specific systems, more specific details you want only to know the owners, you can query that down. Not going to get into that here, but it's an example of how to get contextual information. Also talked about ownership in that first webcast. Yeah, that's the hard thing for us to get the ownership details. Who are the people in charge? Who are the business process owners, the system owners? Even the system administrators sometimes can be a challenge. But talking to the people, because this is the hardest to get for our assets. Also hard to keep up to date. Tap into our change management processes. More details on that was in webcast number 1, but that was laying the groundwork of finding all this contextual information. But now we want to actually figure out, what can we do with all this data? Because my goodness, there's a whole bunch of data out there. And for us in vulnerability management, we need this extra information because it's going to help us deliver on our program. So I'm going to look at only 3 areas, and even in there, only a subset of the information, but to show you how you can leverage contextual information. First one, funny thing called prioritization. I really don't understand why we need to worry about prioritizing all the vulnerabilities. Like, really, like, we only have 2 million of them in the environment. We can fix them all by next week, right? Yeah, no, understand. Prioritization, trying to figure out which one of those 150, 500, and there are organizations with millions of vulnerabilities. I kid you not. And it's not because they don't have a solid program. It's the vast amount of data, the processes we have to step through, and just staying on top of it all. We can have tons of vulnerabilities out there. So how can it help us? Let's leverage it to prioritize. Some simple things we can do to start with. We will often break up and separate the data. So let's say we start with that 100,000 vulnerabilities. I'll just pick a nice round number. Where is it? Where are they located for the first point on the screen? Is it publicly accessible, or are they internal, private, not publicly accessible? That would maybe divide us down from 100,000 vulnerabilities to 20,000, 15,000 in the public bucket to 70 or 85,000 in the private internal. Now I have a little more detail about what's going on, but I need to have the contextual information around this. I can't just arbitrarily do it. How can I understand where location is inside my environments? Well, fundamentally, if you have to, we can go by IP address, a common thing that is done. We can figure it, we know the subnets, what we have that are public facing, we know our private ones. I can break it up that way, separate it in the tools. Ultimately, for any of this kind of information, I'm going to want this stored inside the tool I am using. If we have it inside our scanning tools directly, they can import or allow us to put in from extra contextual information into it. Or if I have it going to a third-party product, exporting the vulnerability scan data and emerging it in tools that are outside. Here I'm thinking of everything from tools like Kenna, Nucleus, the ones that don't necessarily do the scan themselves. They pull the data somewhere else. It could even be into a customized reporting engine, sifting it back into tools like ServiceNow, or, oh geez, I nearly showed my age, Crystal Reports. Oh my goodness. Yeah, stuff I was doing 20 years ago. But depends on the tool or the program that you're using, but I want to have the location information stored in it because it's going to help me break it up. That's one simple thing we can do, as I gave with the public and private. You can do a lot more on location. Maybe it's going to be broken up from a building perspective, a building and even floor perspective. Now I can start to see exactly where stuff is. Reason we might do it by building or by city ties into maybe who we're going to have to worry about getting remediation effort done. Now, if I have it broken up that everything that's in St. Louis goes to the people that are working in St. Louis, that work on the systems in St. Louis, yeah, that actually starts to get it more tailored to those individuals in question. That's where we get some value as well. They don't care about what's going on in, oh, let's pick on Upper Rubber Boot, Mongolia. They're not responsible for the systems there. They may care about the systems we have in Hawaii. That's only because they want to go there in the middle of winter, just like I do. Boy, minus 40 degrees Celsius or Fahrenheit, doesn't matter. Yeah, I want to get out of here sometimes in the winter. But that's an example of using location to help us deal with some prioritization. Criticality of the systems in question. Second point on the screen. An example I gave on here. It's a really simple example, but holding customer data. So it's got our customer database, has all the details about all our customers, probably has a higher priority for our organization than the kiosk that someone who's walking into the lobby is able to try and find the corporate directory and it's locked down. There's nothing else there. It just queries out. But two systems, as an example, might have different criticality on them. So when I have a vulnerability that appears in the environment, layering on this piece of contextual information can help us understand how and which ones we might want to actually prioritize and work on first. Function, another example. What is the system in question doing? Or even the application itself could be the function. You can really tie it down to different categories of the entities. It could be the whole system, it could be the application. Really, it's your choice. But the function, as an example, is it a system that everybody just uses inside the conference room to display onto the conference room screen? So that PC and the little wheelie cart that are docked up at the front that everyone just connects into the cables on the desk, but it really doesn't do anything else? Or is it that customer database system? Again, a piece of contextual information that can help us understand maybe which ones we want to work at inside the organization. Now, the last one I'm going to give here, which image was used to create this? Think here from a container perspective, or even from your cloud for what we're running for our EC2 instances or virtual machines that are sitting out there inside Azure as well. Any of those. What is the image that was used to create where I found this problem? Or which image did I even scan and find the problem in? Because often when we're looking at things like containers and images, we scan the image so long as it's immutable or short-lived. I don't have to worry as much that it's being used 100 times. Scan the image, manage it that way, and see how many times the container's been run, as an example. How often it's called, what's its average lifespan. But which image was this problem found in? Now I know which one I've got to fix. If I've got longer term machines that are running, I have agents baked into, Where was this originally created? Maybe it helps identify when I've got to update the image. Now, you're probably thinking, yeah, okay, there's some good points you have here, Jonathan. Or maybe you're thinking, yeah, this wasn't rocket science. But when you start to layer this information together, is really where the power of contextual information helps you in prioritization. Layering in things like where it's located, what's its function, as well as the criticality of the asset, that really starts to help bubble things out inside our environments. Now, the last major bullet point, talking about threat intelligence, and then I'll come back in a second, just wrap a little bit of this up and tell you some details about things. Threat intelligence, another example, contextual information to help us with prioritization. What's being used in the wild? Is it out there in an active exploit kit? Is it in a worm that's currently running around? You know, all the fun stuff we read about, hear about, that's just going on in the wild today. Oh, well, that's another thing that's going on out there. Great. Yet another problem. Yeah, can help us understand, because if it's active in the wild and we have that vulnerability, maybe we'll want to pay attention a little better to this. Kind of an intersection point of the vulnerabilities and what we got on threat intelligence. Let's mitigate what's in the middle. Now, another piece from a threat intel is what we're actually seeing in our environment. Where are we actually getting probes? What are you seeing? Someone's trying to find port 443, and there's that new vulnerability that was out last night for the service running on 443. Now, all of you are thinking, oh my goodness, that could be anything on 443. Yes, it could be. Standard services, though, dictate certain programs are on there. We can link those together. Comes back to more information I didn't even talk about here, but understanding dependencies between systems. What do I have for open ports? Where does it actually traverse through my network? Understanding the path that can take it inside my environment, so I can see where active probes could be trying to get to, and it can help me to prioritize, because someone's knocking at my door, rattling the doorknob to see if I left it unlocked. Yeah, maybe we want to fix the vulnerability that was in that doorknob lock. So examples of how contextual information can help us. Now, today, inside our vulnerability scanning tools and the reporting engines that we leverage to take the data and amalgamate with others. I've mentioned some of them. The Kenas, the Brinkas, the Nucleuses, our Qualys, the Tenables, the Rapid7s out there, even into our ServiceNow aggregation type tools. They're all allowing us to leverage some of this information. We can and do get access in our scanners today about threat intelligence. You can see what's active exploit is available for it, what's actually out there. Oh my goodness, that's threat intelligence, layering context on. We can break up inside the scanning tools today. We can create groups of our assets. We could do this by location or by criticality or by function. All of this we're able to do in the tools today. So yes, it does take some time for us to set up the groupings, but once it's there, we can start to see the power. Now, there's lots of contextual information that I haven't even mentioned and talked about here. These are just some examples for us to see how we can start to layer the extra data we have. We could do it, as I said, by building. We could do it by system owner. We could do it by system administrator. We can take a look and see, tying into what I'm going to talk about next in metrics, how long has this vulnerability actually been around? What am I dealing with for exceptions? Tying it into dates, timestamps, and getting more reporting about what's happening inside our environment, which leads into the metrics, and it will top into the reporting section that we have coming up. Now, how can we leverage contextual information to generate metrics? Example, tie it off to your system owner. Tie it off to the business owner, the business unit that has the responsibility for this. It's going to help us with approvals. Specific examples I have given here on the screen, looking at just date information, metrics that can help us understand what is going on inside our environment. And all of this is contextual information. It would be available from your scanning tools. The dates of when something has been opened, closed, first found, and published should all be available inside the database of the scanner for those vulnerabilities. If you aren't able to pull it, you can pull them. We talk about a lot of this. We show inside the Management 516 class, we actually give you where the tables are inside the different tools, so you can actually see and be able to pull the information right out. I don't have time for that today, but the date information is available to us. And even some of these are reported out in the NVD database, like when was the vulnerability first disclosed? When was it published? That date is inside the NVD database. If I need to, I can suck down the entire NVD database and I have that date sitting there available for me to use. Now, some examples of using dates. I've got 3 metrics here on the screen just to show you examples. Churn rate, what that is. Churn? Am I making butter now, Jonathan? Yeah, that's not what we're trying to do here. Churn rate. Am I actually really keeping up inside my environment? And I give how you calculate it there on the screen for you. The new vulnerabilities minus the closed vulnerabilities. Are we keeping our head above water? Or are we slowly sinking because they're coming in faster than we're able to get them remediated? Churn is a great metric, but I need the dates to help us understand what's going on. I need to know, was it closed? So it's not directly using the date, but I need to know it was closed off. So maybe you wouldn't need the date on that one. Maybe that wasn't the best example. Next one, let's go into mean time to detect. How fast am I finding the vulnerabilities inside my environment? And you can see here, it's the average of the published date minus the vulnerability discoverage date. So when it was first published, when I found it inside my environment is giving me the mean time to detect. Now, some of you are probably thinking, I have agents on my systems. They report back, let's argue, every 2 hours they're reporting in telling me. So I'm going to know about it in at least in 2 hours or less from when it's in my scanner till I have it reported back and I know where it is in my environment. Okay, I'll give you that with agents. Now, do you have agents everywhere in your systems? Everywhere inside your environment, do you have agents? Now, some of you may have said, yep, we use agents everywhere. I can guarantee you have spots where you're not able to use agents. Networking gear, those multifunction printers, do you have any IoT? Do you have any SCADA systems? Yeah, we don't want to be touching those as much. We won't have agents there. But there's going to be lots of things. The BYOD coming in, all the bring your own devices, because with everyone working remotely, still a lot of people are. Yeah, we got lots of devices. We don't have control, but they're connecting to the networks. There can be a lot of systems, even if we are agents out there. There's a lot where I can't put any of the appliances inside the environment, the embedded systems. As I said, the routers, the switches, the multifunction printers. There is a lot of devices that we can't stick an agent on. So being able to understand the time frame to check and detect across the organization be helpful. If you are using agents, I'd actually break this up into 2. I'd want to know what's mean time to detect on my agents. I can start to see if there's a long tail. I have problems reporting in for agents, and then I want to know for things that don't have agents. That's just me. I want to see both because it'll help me quickly take a look to see, whoa, why is this drifting up? And I really want to see trending with these, but I'm a metrics trend junkie. Third point on here, another one, mean time to resolve. So this is the vulnerability when we closed it, take off when we first discovered it. Again, it's contextual information. A lot of our scanners, as I said, I'm able to pull this information out, but we're not generating these metrics. How long does it take me to solve a problem from once it's found inside my environment? This is going to help you figure out if you're meeting the SLAs. You know, that 30, 60, 90-day remediation time frame, whatever it is in your policy, ta-da, the way we're going to be able to detect it. Or if you know your program's working well, yeah, let's just look to see what's outside of the range of where it's supposed to be. I'm supposed to solve all those high and critical vulnerabilities within 14 days. Show me the ones that are at 12 and above. Oh, and then show me definitely the ones that are outside of the policy. So what's 15 days and greater? So examples of leveraging contextual information, it's going to help us understand what's going on with our program. Now, I mentioned off as well for us. I talked about ownership in our webcast number 1, getting some of the ownership information, but start generating the metrics and ultimately the reporting we're going to talk about next. Yeah, tie it back to the owners. A business owner that is getting metrics that are only relevant for them. Wow. Some people would that would completely blow their mind. Yes, it does take some work, but again, we can group, tagging the information together, putting that contextual information into our tools, or when you start getting into some of these, you may need to extract the data out and put it in another product or a custom reporting tool. But then I can at least put in the owners. Now I can generate metrics that filter down on just that ownership. Now generate the metric for just that owner group or that VP, and find out when it goes to the CEO with their VP meetings. Ooh, who's got isn't actually in conformance with the policies for the resolution, and they're part of the organization. What's going on there, Jonathan? Yeah, you get in the hot seat. But tailoring it specific so they understand what's in their part of the business, their focused part of the organization. That's what they want to know. They don't care about the whole company. System administrator worries about the 5 systems they're looking after. If your system administrator has only 5 systems, they're probably quite happy to be looking after 5 systems. I know some system administrators are looking after hundreds and hundreds of systems. So, but regardless, what's relevant to them, showing what's happening in their part of the environment, tailoring those metrics to those individuals. It'll tie into reporting. Now, I have a link here on the screen as well with regards to the metrics poster that AJ Yon and myself put out earlier this year. It's got the vulnerability management maturity model on one side, and just like version 1, it ended up being on the back. It's supposed to be the front, but anyways, regardless, we have the vulnerability management maturity model, but on the other side, so really page 2, in my view, less important information. It's still important, but vulnerability management maturity model, that's my baby. We want to make sure that's important. We talk about metrics that are important for your environment. So it's a link for that right there on the screen. You can see recommended metrics that we are recommending that you're looking at, recording, generating inside your organization. That's another reference point for you. You may have seen it already. You can download yourself a copy of it, print it out poster size, slap it on the wall. I have a bunch of these in my office, or used to. When I changed offices, I haven't put them back up yet because I'm hardly ever at the office. Now, talking about the ownership information, this ties into how we can leverage context from a reporting perspective. Now, a lot of us out there, I recognize, yeah, we may be using the reports that are out of the box from the scanners. Recognize that, very common thing that we do. But some of those reports are just, they're lacking. They may not present information that's relevant to people, may give everything. So I give a detailed report for all the vulnerabilities in the environment. Bleh. I did that. When I first launched the vulnerability scanner, when it was the Operations Prime, the CIO of the organization asked for a copy of the report. We went, sir, I don't think you want to see that report. No, we want to actually see the report. Let me see everything that's going on. So fine. Packaged it up, dumped it out of the scanner, and sent them the 650-page PDF about what was going on inside the organization. Organization was about 2,000 people. It was 2,000 devices, sorry. It was about 1,700 people, 2,000 to 2,500 total devices in the environment. Now, sending that 650-page report, think for a second, what would your CIO do if you sent them that report? Now, you don't type this out in the I know the questions here. You don't have to do that. Yeah, we told the CIO multiple times they didn't want it. We sent it over to them, and the response we got back was crickets. They recognized the fact that, yeah, we told you this wouldn't be useful information, sir, and it really wasn't, because it was every single vulnerability. It's a detailed report about everything going on inside the environment. Yeah, let's do roll-ups, tailor the reporting for the individuals in question. This can be from the metrics we create. This can be from the details we are sending out. Some examples of leveraging some contextual information in reporting. System administrators, Let's just send them the details that's relevant for their systems. Here's a report for all of the systems that you manage. These are the vulnerabilities, and oh my goodness, here they are in priority. Oh, even better, this is what I need you to do. I'm not going to give you all the vulnerabilities dump. What I really want you to do is, here's the solution to the problem I need you to fix. Like, solve this problem by hitting the update button and getting Windows updates done. Might solve 2 problems, might solve 546. But regardless, tailoring the report to that specific individual, what matters. It seems simple, but it's hard in some cases to get this out of our tools the way we want. Getting the detailed information, the right detail, relevant information to our partners. So system administrators, business owners care about it as well. Why? Because I need to worry about getting approvals to bring systems down, to get remediation efforts done. Tailoring it specific for them instead of making them try and figure out, do I have to worry about things now? Application owners, same thing. The approvals that are to get impact to their applications, or maybe it could be the applications need to get upgraded or authorized. Funding has to get put in place because to get the remediation efforts done. All ties back to the owners. Something that also inside contextual information to help with reporting. Those were the ownerships. Great, fine. Now, I want to take a look and understand the exceptions in my environments. I want to generate reporting solely on the exceptions. I don't want this in the main report. I want a separate report. I want to roll up and understand what's been excluded. The accumulated risk is really what this is giving us inside the organization. I need to understand this. Is there specific systems or specific applications that this is a problem for? Now I know that, yeah, because I have that legacy app that cannot be updated, I now have this cascade of operating system patches, application patches that cannot be applied because they break that application. Yeah, there's a bunch of accumulated risk all because of that one app. That may not be acceptable inside the organization and can help have funding released to actually get that work replaced. But understanding what exceptions have to be granted because of that app, or whatever is the blocker from getting the remediation efforts done. Now, tying back into images again, I talked about them earlier for finding problems or identifying them. Yeah. What problems do we have in images that we are using today to launch our cloud services out there? If we are not keeping these up to date, wow, now every time someone launches, immediately they've got problems. And then I got to worry about getting them remediated for all the new assets that are spun up. So when we're doing the scan, understanding the vulnerabilities that are inside those images, yeah, I can get maybe really get that image updated. Easy to do in a container environment, only from the perspective of containers by definition are supposed to be short-lived and they're immutable. Sorry. That means they don't change the environment when they're running. They just process something and shut down. That's the classic definition of a container. Yay! I can update the image next time it's called. Look at that. It runs the new program. Existing systems, yeah, I'm going to have to worry about deploying the new image, and then we have to have it in place of the application owners, the system owners, whoever it is that has to do the migrate to the new image. So we're just doing a continual deployment. Almost starts us into the CI/CD kind of land, continual improvement, continual deployment. But if we don't have that automation built into our environment, maybe it is a quarterly basis. Who knows? Maybe it's a monthly. It really does depend on your environment. But can I identify the images that are holding more problems? That might actually identify that these need to get worked on first if it's not a CI/CD or DevSecOps type environment where these are continually being worked on and deployed and active inside the environment as quick as we can to remediate them. But showing this, presenting the reporting, all that ties back to on the images. Do I know which image that vulnerability is associated with? Where did this get created from? Examples of reporting. We want ultimately for any of this, we're trying to show and really be effective in our program, but we're giving tailored, detailed reporting information to the different groups or about different subject topics inside our environment is what we are doing. And ultimately, for any of this, be it the reporting, be it the prioritization, be it the metrics generation, we want to automate this. I don't want to have one of my analysts who has to come in every morning and spend the first hour of their day generating metrics, because we're doing it on spreadsheets. Now, recognize, I've been there. I've done that, lived the spreadsheet land. But I don't know about you. My organization is kind of short on people that have good security background, good knowledge, can deal with vulnerability management. I also see this in a lot of companies that I work with, hear it from a lot of students that I teach. So maybe if we can automate that, then I'm going to get an hour back for that analyst to both be doing the really repetitious and non-job satisfaction type work, and actually get them doing what we're paying them to do, which is work on the vulnerability management program, do the analysis where it cannot be automated. We want to automate as much as we can in our environments to make it easier to do the work. And really, we want to see if our program's being effective. So I'm not going to be able to get into that today. That really is coming up in part 3 of the webcast series. And that is going to be on September 14th at 3 p.m. Eastern. And how can we tell is our program being effective? We're going to take a look at, during that webcast, what do we need to worry about to be able to tell our program? Some of it'll be reporting, some of it'll be metrics, just as some teaser information out there. But we'll look at that. How can I tell, is my vulnerability management program really delivering effectively? Or do we really not even know if we're being effective? And so you'll get some ideas of how you can start to tell, is the program effective or not. But that we've got coming up for you September 14th. So hopefully we will see you there coming up in 4 weeks' time. Now, I know we got 40 minutes in here. What did we do? What have we talked about today? We took a look at contextual information. We did the brief recap on what it is, how we can gather some aspects of it. We looked at prioritization, really to help us understand where the critical items are inside our organization. We took a look at metrics, how to create meaningful metrics, and really tailoring those metrics for the audience that is going to consume them. That's what we want to be able to do. Contextual information is what we need to have to help us get to that point. And finally, reporting. Reporting to the partners what is relevant for them. Why send them about vulnerabilities on the Linux systems when they're a Windows administrator? They don't care. So getting relevant information in the reporting that we send out to our partners. Now, any really piece of information is going to be helpful for us. We want to be able to start to use it. You will not be able to use every piece of contextual information at the start in your program. If you're just starting out today, brand new vulnerability management program manager, and you're looking at, you're not going to be able to do things. We're going to have to start with the easier items, really follow the crawl, walk, run. So get the easier things that you can quickly generate, automate if you can, and then slowly work through the program to keep getting access to more and more details around your program. And we'll take a look at some of that coming up inside the webcast 3 with effectiveness in our program. Now, what I want to do is I want to open this up for questions. So if you have a question, please feel free to put that out in the Zoom. I see there's a couple already in there, but just giving people some time to put out in there. All the information we've seen here today, and well, it's not identical to what we have in the class, but it's types of information that we actually do talk about in Management 516. And I've just listed across here at the bottom of the screen where I'm going to be teaching the next couple classes that I've got coming up. So we've got the Leadership Summit that I mentioned off at the first. Remember, the summit part is free. Then there's the classes that are associated with it starting. It's a live online format, September 19th. We've got Leadership in Cloud, live online, my version of the course, that's starting there on the 24th of October. And we got Sands Gulf region. So that is actually in Dubai. It's in person as well as live online. That one's coming up in November. Now, thank you very much for the time today, but we want to flip over to the questions. So I'm going to ask Laura if she can come on the line here and let me know what we got for questions out there.
You got it, Jonathan. Thank you so much. We do have some questions ready for the Q&A, and if anyone else has additional ones, please enter them now. So the first question, Jonathan, tips on risk-based approach to VM and timelines. Any best practices?
Oh boy. I think we're going to need another webcast. No, using risk-based approach, yeah. Trying to understand the risk associated with the vulnerabilities. Some of this is going to be tied into the contextual information we've been talking about today. Example, one piece of information about the vulnerability that everybody is using, the CVSS score. That's a very rudimentary thing from a risk approach, because it does a scale of 1 to 10, so it's giving you some breakdown. But leveraging and trying to group things either from a risk tolerance perspective or risk acceptance. As an example, I'll try and an easy example maybe from a risk-based approach could be if you want to, and the low vulnerability, so say CVSS score 4 and below, something that's scoring off low, we're only going to be a best effort there. That really is a risk tolerance approach. So if I'm only a best effort, we'll get to it when we can. Why would you want to necessarily be directly reporting on all the problems that we are not mandating have to be done in a fixed time frame? So looking at it from that risk approach, layering on top of this, how I can actually remediate the problems, look at the problems, focusing on where we deem are the higher categories. So with a vulnerability management and the timelines, you mentioned stuff up on that. Timelines are a hard one for us, for almost most organizations. How do I ensure my timelines, or what is really good timelines? It's a common question I end up getting. But with that, we've got to take a look really at our organization and what is the tolerance that we have for the risks. I can't say that, as an example, everything that is a critical vulnerability on a public-facing system has to be remediated within 2 days, because I might not be able to do that with the processes inside the organization. I'd have to maybe crash change management processes. This is always an emergency change to be able to meet that timeline. So setting up timelines, we talk about this in the course, but we have to make sure we're setting realistic timeframes that are relevant and achievable by the organization based on the cadence of our processes and practices. So a remediation timeframe, the deadline that we have, has to be longer than how long my organizational processes take to churn through it. So as an example, if I say the deadline is 30 days, but to go through a standard change management process, to put all the vulnerabilities into there, to have them properly tested in QA, QC, to then go into the change management, or to carry on in change management to get the remediation efforts done, is 45 days. I can never hit that unless I crash, and it's always an emergency change. Our systems, you wouldn't want to do that. You want to try and get everything to be standard process. It churns through. So we have to look at holistically our program and the other processes that we leverage to see how timeframes are going to end up working together. But that is it's a very long topic, actually, that we can spend time talking about with the timeframes and risk-based approach and the vulnerability management. So quick hits, I try and get if you're looking at it from a pure risk tolerance perspective, leverage some of the contextual information that is around and go for the highest priority systems. So I cannot tolerate having my customer database breach. I want my public-facing systems that take orders to always be up. That means we need to worry about getting those remediated because my risk tolerance is low for failure. I can only have it down 1 minute out of every day. That system has to have the priority for vulnerabilities dealt with than, say, let's pick on the CEO's desktop. They're never at their desk anyways. They're always in meetings. So that may be a lower priority. Now, the executive assistant to the CEO, they're probably a high priority item because you always work with the admin assistants, exec assistants, because they can always get you into the schedule and bounce somebody else. So always work nice and be nice to them. But that's besides the point. But there's some examples of how we can look on the risk side and some on the timeframes. But it's a great question and it's a huge topic. We could end up, in all honesty, talk for hours on this. So I'm going to leave that one there. Hopefully that helped give you some stuff. So Laura, back over to you for another question.
You got it. Is vulnerability data valuable to board of directors or senior leadership? I struggle with this because I'm not sure a CEO would want to know how many vulnerabilities we have. Sure, a CISO might, but I'm not sure if other C-levels would care.
Yeah, that's a great question. We need to get the information rolled up to the level of our audience. So as an example, sending something to a system administrator that's going to be doing the work, I need the details in there. But for the C-suite, they don't care about that. Yeah, that system XYZ has a problem on it and ABC has a problem on it too that's 3 days old. Yeah, they don't care about that level. We have to tailor the information for the audience, but C-suite definitely needs to know about what's going on in our vulnerability management program. We do have some information on the metrics poster. If you take a look on there, it is talking about the executive level metrics. But it is, you need to target the audience. So they need to understand corporate risk. What's happening from an exception perspective? Are we out of compliance in some aspects? That could be from remediation timeframes because the regulator is going to come and tap on the door. It could be related to a regulatory framework, pick on something like PCI DSS, that if I'm not doing something within the timeframes, I may lose the ability to do work for the company. They need to understand at that level from a corporate risk perspective, corporate strategic activities, not what's going on the individual systems. So I agree, the vulnerability count probably is not relevant to them, but understanding what's our average, pick on one I mentioned today, the mean time to detect and seeing the trending associated with it may be something useful from a executive perspective, because they'll see how long it's taking us to find the problems, understanding the risk, the exposure. It's another metric on the poster, and another one we talk about is our average exposure windows. But as an example, tailoring the metrics to those individuals, even as you're stepping down to the mid-level management, is different than what we do to the frontline hands-on keyboard person doing the work. They all need to have the relevant specific information for them. But the C-suite and the board need to know about vulnerability management, but we got to have it at their level. They are strategic thinkers, overall corporate. That's the level we need to be reporting on. And just vulnerability counts, yeah, I wouldn't report that. Definitely not to the your CISO might not even care, quite frankly, on the number of vulnerabilities. They need to get more granular and see more details about what's happening in the program. But executives should always know, in my opinion, and there's being more regulatory requirements, or at least from a public company perspective reporting, the CISO and the CFO and others are signing off on the corporate risk. We roll up into that. So yes, we definitely need to have them getting the information about what's happening. But yeah, the poster has some stuff on executive metrics for you as well. Okay, hope that helped. Laura, back to you for another question, if we've got one.
We do. Which reporting tool can you recommend to feed with my vulnerability scanner output for nice reports?
Oh boy. There are lots of different tools that you can feed information into. I don't have a lot that I can say it's like, yeah, that pick on tool X is the whiz bang solves all the problems in the world, because it also really does define down to some aspects of how easy it is to do some customization, because we're going to need to be generating our own metrics, tailoring and pulling some information in. We have that capability even today inside some of our vulnerability scanners directly, the Rapid7s, the Tenables, the Nessus, the Qualises of the world. We can do some work with that right now. Can we do everything we want? No. That's where we're seeing we term them like the next gen vulnerability scanning tools or vulnerability management tools, the things like the Kennas, the Brinkas, the Nucleuses, and even into the ServiceNows, that they aggregate a bunch of data together. So they're trying to join the vulnerability management in things with the asset management, bringing in the application and vulnerability scanners as well, tying it in maybe with our service ticketing system. So at least I'm starting to aggregate and a more holistic view of what's happening out there. So those are some tools that do that, but a specific to this is the best tool to do that. They all have their challenges. They all have some good features and functionality. So I can't just say, go and buy the Jonathan Risto Tool Inc. company's tool because it solves the problem. There isn't one of those out there. I would look and see what you need from your requirements for you. Define the requirements list, see what hits that 80 to 90%. If you can get them, that's the tool to go with. If you've got multiples, good for you. You can actually see more details and start to do even better comparisons. I see in some companies, though, they end up with some specific requirements. They can't even get 50% coverage on them. So it's look at what you need to be able to derive and then go and take a look at the tools. And it's a growing market right now. Always new tools coming out. We keep seeing acquisitions and mergers happening, or even just complete buying of products. And where it's going to go, like it's hard to say where some of the purchasing companies, what they're going to be doing with the product. So it's a hard question to answer, but those are some examples of tools that can help pull it together. Next one, Laura.
Sorry, I was muted. You talked about a couple of different systems for the vulnerability. What should we look for to get this type of information you consider important?
Oh boy, different. It does depend what kind of information you want to pull in. As an example, getting stuff from our cloud environments today. All of the classic vulnerability scanners that we have, our Rapid7s, the Tenable's, the Qualyses of the world, just the classic vulnerability scanners we think about can all grab in, get access to some of the contextual information out of our cloud. Some of them can start to and do pull in, whether it's directly I'm able to do it or if I need a special license to do it. I can pull in information from our asset management environments, as an example, trying to fuse some of that, gathering some of the threat intelligence information. All that can be done in the classic scanners that we are leveraging today inside our environments that have been around and are the market leaders out there of classic vulnerability scanners. So they can definitely do that for us. Now, what we want to try and do and understand from our tools is, can I add extra information into it? So do I have the ability to create custom fields, or even will they import the custom fields from our cloud environment if I define all the tags there? Say I'm 100% cloud, I put all the extra tags inside my cloud. Can the tools ingest all of that information and allow me to do customization or reporting on the data, be it the ownership, the image information, when this was launched inside the environment, all kinds of options for extra stuff that we can put into tags that we would want to be able to leverage from the tool. So can that be done natively inside the tool, or do I have to bring it outside? Let's pick out, we take it to a back-end data lake, and then I do custom reporting on it. Options could be there for that as well. But some of the basic concepts I've talked about today and the functionality we have and can do inside the vulnerability scanners today. I tend to see when we want to get a lot more tailoring of things and some really customized metrics, those are harder for us to generate in the tools. I need to take it somewhere else to generate that. And in the larger companies, when we want to do a lot of customization, they tend to export the data out into a back-end data lake because they have it, a data warehouse, data lake, the lake house, we've heard that's called too. Options for us. We can pull them back there. Then at least I can do whatever customized reporting that I want with my reporting engine that I'm using internally in the company today. So hopefully that answered that question for you as well. I think, Laura, we're running low on time here. I don't know if there's anything more, but I'll leave that to you if we've got more or if we want to wrap things up.
There's no more questions. I think this last one is a comment.
Okay, yeah.
Tanium, and then we can wrap up. Tanium provides additional risk score for vulnerabilities.
Yeah, definitely. Some of the tools like Tanium, one of them, Kenna, another product that we have out there that generates its own internal risk score. So you get a score from 0 to 100 about the risk associated with a vulnerability. They also tell you stuff about how you can actually, if you remediate this problem, it'll reduce your risk by this much. A lot of the tools are giving some customized risk score. The challenge I have with that is it's really hard to know what they're doing to generate that score. I want to understand the details so I know what's going on. The problem is that's a lot of their secret sauce, the value they feel they bring to the, it's hard to find that information out, how they generate the risk and what's all being added into it. And then can I bring in some of my internal stuff, pick on things like internal threat intelligence. I need to feed in data that's coming from my own internal sensors, the IDSs, IPSs, firewalls, or what my incident response team is doing, or my internal threat team wants to highlight some stuff. Can I leverage that data as well and put it in to get more granularity on the score, more contextual information being used? That I tend to find we've got to do with the work ourselves to generate what we feel are the risk scores associated with it. But there are a lot that are out there that do generate risk and try and highlight that aspect and give you some prioritization based on what they've glued together for the extra context information themselves. So it definitely is out there. Totally agree. So thank you for the comment. And I think with Laura said, we're going to wrap things up because we are up to the hour. I thought we might be a little closer, but apparently I talked too long. So thank you, everybody, for taking the time to spend it with us today. Truly appreciate. Don't forget, we do have the other webcast coming up in September. And we have any questions, feel free to reach out. I gave on the start slides, but you can find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, wherever. More than happy to help if I can. So thanks, everybody, once again. And back to you, Laura, to wrap things up.
Thank you so much, Jonathan, for your presentation and bringing this content to the SANS community. To our audience, we greatly appreciate you listening in. And for a schedule of all upcoming and on-demand SANS webcasts, please visit sans.org/webcasts. Until next time, take care, and we hope to have you back again for the next SANS webcast.